horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, fancied in the morning, continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
Very good evening and a warm welcome to the Barsters Inquiry Late Show Sunday sermon this week. Apologies for that, due to logistics. Read into that what you will. But anyway, joining me as always tonight for some fun and frolics and discussing the absolute shithousery of the sport we're invested in, John Lang and Lorne Melville. Good evening, chaps.
Hello.
I think I've got jet lag. I think that's what the logistical problem is.
Jet lag?
John's been to the US with his can of milks, trying to sell the Yanks some can of milks.
I felt half doped out here.
I thought you were worn out walking around your wallet, John. That was it. I thought you must have been fucking worn out.
Mate.
Yeah, one man at each corner trying to pick it up.
I'm going to say, apart from last weekend, John's been in pretty darn good form. Sometimes the things just don't happen for a reason. But anyway, let's get on to the show where we've got absolute topics bursting out of the seams. Before we talk guineas and stuff, we'll just mix it up a bit rather than starting the show with boring horse racing chat. Let's go to this case that I read about a few weeks ago, and it was Antti Kamiskas first retweeted it, and I'm thinking, what's this? The Bet365 case where a certain chap has used multi Bet365 accounts and on mobile phones, on burner phones, and took advantage of bonuses from Bet365 under lots and lots of accounts, and also used them for betting as well, I believe. And anyway, we've drawn the winnings back to his bank, and he's been sentenced to 5 years in jail for doing so. Now, the problem with this is that no one seems to know exactly how he's got 5 years, because surely multi-accounting in terms of taking advantage of bonuses in different people's name doesn't warrant 5 years in jail. So someone actually then said, well, it was because he was falsifying that income to be used as proof of income to get a mortgage. So that was falsifying information to Santander. That was the bank involved. Chaps, to me, surely half the country would be guilty of that, wouldn't they, when they're trying to get the self-employed people, when they're producing data for a mortgage application, half the country would be going down, wouldn't they?
Yeah. They never go out. The kids don't eat. The kids don't have school shoes. Yeah, no, not £0 for that. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the course. There has to be more to it than that, doesn't there? You'd hope, wouldn't you?
Well,
that can't be it, surely.
The strange thing, no one that I know of, and I've asked around, has got details to this case, as in the case transcript or I mean, Chris, do you know more on legal things like this?
I've been in jail loads of times, so yeah. 10 years on the fucking moor or on the Isle of Wight. Yeah.
No, I
can definitely find out. I know a very good criminal lawyer that can get all this information. So maybe if there's any appetite, we can park it for a week and I can try and get some sort of proper analysis. Because sort of at first blush, that does seem absurd. And I know the courts do dish out strange sentences, but that's a hefty old lump, isn't it, really? That's a lump. There has to be. You'd hope there's something else to it.
Well, John, on that footing, you get less for fingering like minors than
Penny Morden.
Yeah,
Penny. Previous conversation before we went on air.
Yeah, Penny Morden and her sword, John.
Yeah, she can polish my orbs anytime. I promise you. If she's listening, fucking no appointment necessary. I promise you.
Good God, John.
The Apple rating. Yeah.
John, put him straight.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to go down for a 10 to 15 stretch when they bundled us all into the van and sat them on it.
Very good.
Yes,
I'll find out. There has to be, you'd hope, more to it than that, because that is a very aggressive sentence if it is for mortgage fraud. I mean, do we have any indication what the value might be of the fraud?
Yeah, I think it was something in the region of about £170,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Lump though, isn't it? 5, I suppose. I mean, I don't know what. Obviously, sentencing guidelines will have various sort of tariffs, won't they? I'm guessing for financial financial crime. So maybe it's sort of just gone over a particular deadline. I mean, I do, what you see more often is it's much worse to nick money than it is to bash some old girl on the head. I mean, that's what we know. If you nick money, they'll throw away the key. That's what seems to be. So maybe they're sort of, I don't know.
But if you get your Bugatti stolen, Chris,
yes,
right?
Always Andrew Tate's nicked mine, the bastard, and I can't get the to get it from him. Yeah, quite.
So you get that nicked, you'll just get a crime number.
Mate, I throw mine away when the ashtrays are full. I tell you, that's how rich I am. The lay-bys round here are just full of Bugattis, with flat tyres. Honestly, yes, that's all you get nowadays. I mean, crime against property is just a shrug and a number for insurance purposes, isn't it?
I think that's why they let me out, because while all the other banners said "not my king," mine just said "slip of the pen, can't run for shit."
John with his slip of the pen banner. I could just see it now. I've got this mental image of him stood there with big grin on his face, held above his head, and he's slip of the pen is shit. I like this.
I'll try and find out. I'll ask around. I'm sure, there's a few guys I know that can give a sort of a sensible, sort of straightforward analysis as to why that was a lump of a sentence. But there's probably something in there that might indicate why it was such a hefty tariff. Let's see. I'll try and find out.
Yeah, good stuff, Chris. Okay, we shall move on from that because we can't comment because we haven't got enough data on the case.
That doesn't stop us before, do we? We just sort of spitball and just...
Yeah, just cut in with a quick question as we've just been talking about Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss. Quivig has said, any royalists on the panel, or can you rightly claim to be racing's #1 Republican podcast now? What are we thinking?
There's only me in the left now.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think you're right. I think
Queen Penny for me. Queen Penny, that's what we should have. Fuck everybody else.
Yeah. Some political commentator actually said about her becoming PM. She was that good at carrying the sword that she should be PM.
Yeah. Well, she has a fair grip on her, hasn't she?
I'm going to say, yeah. Holding that for like 20 minutes, I think I'd have been flagging, John.
Well, I've got some she could hold for 20 minutes.
Whip,
might go off in her hands, mate.
She wouldn't have needed 2 hands with me, I promise you.
Oh, it's descended into chaos. But I just think she must have muscles like Fatima Whitbread to hold that for that long. Yeah.
Unless it's a fake sword.
Like one of them plastic ones that you got.
Yeah, because I mean we know we know it's all fake, don't we? It's out on display in case any of the plebs rush in and prize a diamond out or something to feed the kids.
Pockets full of them.
Right.
Despite the hat having its own fucking car.
Did he have it, John? I didn't watch it. Did he have his own car again?
Yes, and we've got a seat divider now because there's 2 hats.
That's sort of true, actually. I think that's true.
There's no back seat in the car. Nobody but the hat can ride in the car.
Did you know as well that the car itself is bulletproof windows as well to protect the hats?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always some fucking maniac out there going to try and take out the hat, isn't there?
Might do. You don't know.
Right.
Trying to make a name for itself.
Let's have a more serious topic, seeing we've gone a little bit off script. We go to watering, John, and this is something that a lot of our listeners have certainly messaged us about via DM and tweeted about it in frustration. To be fair, a lot of the podcasts that I've sort of briefly listened or I've read people on Twitter are generally in agreement now that this watering is getting a little bit out of hand. I was disappointed, I've got to say, and she knows what I think of her, Lydia Hislop, half defending Prosser at the weekend, saying, well, if it hadn't rained, it'd have been quick. What, John, what's your take on the course that Prosser's produced for the weekend?
I think he made a massive mistake in watering because, as we saw throughout the meeting, there was no racing line whatsoever. I mean, they were going all over the track. And some horses patently don't handle those on top overwatered ground, especially when it's been rained on. There's a lot of horses in both Guineas that have not run their race. I'll assert that now. There's several horses that have just utterly underperformed in both Guineas, and I would put it down to the ground entirely.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there was a lot of horses that were beaten too far out in both Guineas. You know, you could tell they were going nowhere fast. And I think that's, like you said, about racing line, it's interesting because obviously, as we know, horses are herd animals, this, that, other, and you can only follow what you're following on a certain part of the track. And if that part of the track, if that horse on that part of the track's not going, then you're following the wrong one and you're never going to get into the race.
Well, that 1,000 guineas looked like they just jumped the fifth in the national and they were coming down towards Bakery.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So what are we saying? RE the watering cans now, because we touched on this a lot last year, and it seems to me that the Clarks are under a lot of pressure from trainers to produce not good to firm, because if the trainers wanted good to firm,
the trouble is, Lee, they're listening to idiots. Well, I'm sorry, but these trainers, I mean, they're obviously not taking into account stick ratings, because stick rating pre-mating was about 7 point something. I've raced at Newmarket when it's been on 11.
Yeah. Well,
you know, that's not dangerous ground, 7 point something. It's nowhere. It's not even quick ground.
Well, I'm concerned this season, and I made a point about it the other week, that Clarks are announcing the ground. And if you look at past stick readings, so they'll give out, I'll give you an example. Windsor the other day, not today's meeting, on the Bank Holiday Monday, the last one, they gave it out as sort of soft ground. Now, there wasn't an element of soft in it. It was heavy. Leicester did the same. Leicester said it was soft, heavy in places. It was absolutely bottomless.
That was a 3 point something rating, wasn't it?
Yeah, all tracks seem to be doing it. I don't know if this is I'll probably get called paranoid again, but why are all tracks doing it? Why are all tracks reporting ground as, say, good? Then I'll go on turf tracks. So they'll say good 6.4. And then I'll go on turf tracks, and good all last season was 7. So it's not good, is it?
Yeah.
So something's a lie. And it's, Goodwood were the same. It's getting to a point where I don't know if it's like deliberately dishonest to pacify trainers or to pacify. I don't know. I've no idea. But it's not good for punters because, I mean, was it you, John, the other day on DMs? I think you said something about, you were going to, or someone said they were going to back something, and I said I don't trust Clarks. I just don't. I've lost all faith in trusting a going reading now because I want to see a race before I actually bet. It's that bad. They're that bad.
I've felt like that for a long time.
Yeah,
especially these festival meetings. You know, it's a shame when meetings like York kick off with that good 12 furlong handicap, as it will at the Dante meeting. And you're taking a watching brief because you don't know what the ground's going to be like.
Sure.
I mean, York are better than most, in all fairness.
They are. Sorry to be biased again, my local track, and obviously the one of the best tracks in the world. But literally, York do get a lot right. And William Darby will come on racing TV, not like he doesn't court TV like, say, Cooper Clark at Sandown, where he wants to be on the morning line and he doesn't give the going report till then. William Darby will come on the day before when the team are in place at the bigger meetings, and he'll like walk the course. We say one at racing TV, and he'll say, "Look, this is what I think it is. It may be dry out overnight. It's good to soften," and he gives an accurate sort of reading. And I wish Clarks all over the country would be like that. If you're going to produce soft ground, then just say, "Look, it's soft," and that's it. Or be honest. Be honest with punters. Because punting is what makes a sport, as we know. Not for much longer, but.
I mean, in all honesty, the much maligned Gambling Commission, if they were doing their job, would be all over this. Because you've got the regulatory body presiding over a system where people betting their hard-earned can't find out the proper going until the race is being run.
No, we're all sat there,
it's as though they're being put away. And then when you look at gross profits tax, you start thinking, well, are they being put away? Because whose interest is it in? They give misleading going forecasts and shit going in the farm book.
Well, this is it. We're in a game where it's advantageous for the customer, as you and Chris have touched on past shows. It's in the interest of the customer to be losing, because obviously that's what's inherently going to fund the sport going forward. So as much information.
If the punter loses 125, they're out the game. So
there is no punter, is there, anymore? But I think punters want certainty. And certainty is the enemy of bookmakers, isn't it? The more variables or unknowns you can introduce into the equation, the more profitable it is for bookmakers. So You're right. Certainty is the enemy of the bookmaker, isn't it?
Going forwards, it's obviously not going to change, because there's clearly, in the last sort of 5 years in particular, more than anything, there's been this concerted effort to produce like sloppy on top ground, like John said. For what evidence is there that this ground is any safer than the Bath ground, where they have no watering system? So when you do get hot spells, it's very firm. Obviously, you need a certain type of horse to act on very fast ground. I know some trainers we've had on the shows in the past have said there's horses that I could not run on anything quicker than good. So I get that, but then that's how it is. Surely there has to be a role and a place for sound horses that have got straight-legged actions to run on rattling quick turf, John.
Well, you go back to like your old school trainers and look at horses that they wouldn't be able to run on fast ground and say, well, I'm not training unless it's a triple.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stallions these days have got into the breed where their offspring have prospered on, shall we say, ground with dig in it. And once you go down that road, you're struggling, really, I mean, the Japs aren't bothered, I mean, they'll put stallions up that want it like concrete. Which spot's on the way up and which spot's on the way down? I'd have a fiver on the Japs against us.
Just interestingly, when I've been in the States before, I've walked Gulfstream Park West Calder Racecourse, and I've honestly, if that was, they described it as good to firm. That was their track reading, or even firm. I can't remember but it wasn't even firm. It was like a road. It was just literally concrete. I mean, it was that was their turf course. So look, I just think maybe, is it trainers though? Because have you noticed recently the red hood thing, John? There's lots now wearing red hoods to post, and then obviously take it off. It's as if one decides it's a good idea, and rest follow.
Well, you never saw a hood, did you? And then Varian started putting them on, and then they all followed suit. They're not just creatures of habit; they're absolute shape. Once the consensus is that, I don't know, 6.5 to 7.5 is the optimum racing surface, you're going to struggle to get any traction with any sort of campaign, because clerks serve trainers and no one else, really.
Yeah, yes, that's where we're at. But I'd like to see more calls out in the mainstream media. Obviously, Lydia didn't agree that Prosser has made a complete mess of it, but that's where we're at. It's all opinions. But I disagree with Lydia on this occasion, because I think he has made an absolute bollocks of it. Coming on to the PJA, the Professional Jockeys Association, the coup going on there, John. And this also ties in with some stats, really. And you'll think, how is this tying with stats? Front runners, Paul Cavendish, the excellent statistician on Twitter that follows the pod as well. Thank you, Paul. Has highlighted that flat turf handicaps, John, now are through the roof in terms of front runners. It holds the record currently of any year that he can go back to in terms of the success of front runners. And do we think, John, that first of all, before we get onto the PGA, that the whip, as obviously the jockeys are sort of frightened now because the punishment's so severe, that they either give up too soon or save the cracks till too late, and that's the reason why so many front runners are winning?
I think they're very conscious of the lower limit, which, I mean, I think they've only knocked one strike off, haven't they? But I think it's really got into the jockeys, and when I do my notes, I'm noticing a lot of jockeys are jacking in as if to say I've used up. I can't get there. I've got I don't know. I've got two left on 6 lengths down. I've had it.
Yeah.
You know.
So then don't bother.
Hold up horses now. I'm very, very careful about backing. Very.
Yeah. You certainly don't want the old lazy types, do you?
Well, you might as well. This sounds awful. You might as well shoot them. You're not going to win races with them.
No, it's going to be more difficult for the likes of, remember the old Mr. Nando that used to sort of be lazy as hell out the back and need about 14 reminders, and then he'd decide to just run on in the straight. Yeah.
Horses that run for the whip, you know. I mean, you're signing their death warrants, I'm afraid, and that's what happens when you get badly thought out rules like that.
So of course, there's been a revolt at the PJA where basically this has led to the resignation. Some senior jockeys and basically are trying to land a coupe. I've heard that Paul Struthers has been mentioned to take over the PJA. So the resignation of Chairman John Holmes, External Director Simon Cox, and the former jockey and ITV racing broadcaster Mick Fitzgerald has also quit the board. What's going off there, John?
Well, I think the jockeys probably feel as though they've been somewhat poorly represented in the latest road changes, reading between the lines. And I mean, I'll put my cards on the table here. Paul is a friend of mine, but personally, I think they really do need him back, because at least the jockeys felt they had a focal point who was actually fighting for them, rather than just fulfilling a role and earning a couple of boats of gravy, you know.
How do we stop the sort of like camps though? Because that's never going to be overturned, is it?
That's the problem now. You know, we've gone down a very dark road, haven't we, with this limit of how many times you can strike the horse. It tells you really that the negotiations were flawed to start with when we got this strike limit situation. I mean, that's going back several years, you know, probably about 15 in it since we've had strike limits. Well, or at least counting the strikes. But I mean, when they brought the pro cush in, that was the big chance for jockeys to say, well, hang on a minute, this doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You're saying so as a regulatory body, it does not hurt. Why are we limiting how often it can be used?
Well, the argument before the pro cush was because it used to mark the horse. It strikes on the horse. You could see horses coming back to the winner's enclosure with sort of cuts and, you know, definite marks. You know,
I mean, there you go back to like the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, in high summer when a horse's coat's as thin as it can get, I've seen them coming back in. I mean, the wheels on their asses, I mean, look like Kunta Kinte off route. You know?
Fucking hell.
But yeah, exactly, point taken. And this is it. This is where we're at now. And there's no sort of reversal. But, I mean, Tom Scudamore was calling for more engagement with senior jockeys, because apparently the senior jockeys are pissed off because they just don't seem to get a voice. Now, where we had that before, on affordability, etc., the main people that are affected haven't got a voice. This is why I seem to think it reeks within racing, where the main people that are involved, i.e. for the whip debate, it's the senior jockeys. And they're pissed off with this, they're not happy with it, but they're not getting listened to. And these are the people that are, I would class, you know, despite how many winners have you ridden arguments, I would class senior jockeys as people that understand how a horse works, thinks, etc., and would know whether this horse needs 5 cracks 4 out or whether it needs just a tap. You know, these are experienced horsemen that will galvanise the best out of their horses. They're not butchers.
Let's be fair as well. Most horse people know that once you overstep the mark as regards how many times you're giving a horse a crack, it stops running for it and curls up.
It does. I mean,
so overstepping the mark is counterproductive anyway. But the rulers of the game don't have enough faith in the common sense of the best practitioners of the game to leave them to it.
Indeed. Chris, I mean, this really is on a... Do you agree with my comments about how everything seems to be mirroring everything else? Like the nonsense of affordability, the nonsense of whips, the nonsense of diversity in racing, and basically...
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just racing, Leo, is it? It's society. It seems to me that the policymakers and regulators pay most attention to that very vocal minority of people that use social media to express their views, and they are relentless. And it just seems really odd that policymakers and politicians seem to pay more attention to those people who are, invariably eminently less qualified to comment than the people actually doing the job. And it's odd, isn't it? It's really strange that senior jockeys apparently feel that they haven't been consulted. And you've got to wonder what benefit is it for these individuals not to be consulted? I just don't get it. I just do not understand. So, yeah, not just racing, it's everywhere, isn't it?
Once again, you've got Harrington presiding over a block of people in the sport who are seriously disaffected. And there appears to be no response to that.
No, it's a crisis of leadership. It's a crisis of vision. I dare say, being serious, I'm sure there are some very talented and very frustrated people within the BHA sort of hierarchy that just don't have the authority or the freedom to do what's right for racing because they're following some mad agenda from the top, which seems to be to jump on every bandwagon and try and please everybody.
Now, just to add to the evidence for this, before people think we're actually mad. Regarding affordability, Sean Trivas, the new horse racing bettors forum chair from last October, has more or less caved in. I've seen his interview with Chris Cook in the Racing Post, and whilst he's not in agreement with the measures, he's basically placating them, understanding them. That's not representing a punter. God, do we need a punters union? Some of his comments I find absolutely abhorrent when he basically says...
Like what?
Well, when he says, basically, this is happening, there's nothing we can do about it. So he's lying down there, for starters.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just interested for the listeners to get some examples of what he's saying. Yeah. So I read it and I agree with you. I thought...
Well, he said the £1,000 limit was perfectly understandable, didn't he?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Which, for anybody doing it for a living, it's not perfectly understandable. That's patently obvious.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be doing it for a living because that's irresponsible. You should get a nice 9-to-5 job and be a wage slave because that's what they want you to do.
So that's the chairman of the Horse Racing Bettors Forum. The literally, and apparently they're setting up a meeting with a minister in the summer, gambling minister, or Stuart Andrews, sorry, not the actual gambling minister, and the gambling commission.
And what's the point of that when you're walking into the meeting with your trousers around your ankles?
Yeah, you basically said, we're accepting it. We've got to accept it. Why have we got to accept it? Why? Why is not... There is a big need now for a punters union, an enormous need. And it needs to gather momentum with everyone on side because if it doesn't...
It needs to be more aggressive, doesn't it?
It needs
to have an aggressive... a very, very vocal and almost uncompromising, because you can't compromise with these people. They're bad faith actors. So you have to set out, absolutely what you want and why you want it. And listen, politicians are sort of, flighty as anyone else. As soon as they smell that they might lose votes or a particular policy is going to become unpopular, they'll change it. So all this idea, it won't get changed. It will get changed if it's going to affect their ability to get voted in.
Yeah, and we've been saying this for well over 2 years, and I don't care if people say, get your trumpets out again, what do you want a medal? Yes, I do. Because...
Yes, please. Like Muttley in Dastardly Race.
Again, this is why we bet for a living, because I'll tell you what, that's what it's all about, foresight and seeing in advance what people are planning and doing. And we've called this to a T. We said what SCV would do, right? And there's been some terms and conditions I've read this week, right, from the bookmakers that say the SCV checks that they will run on you if they deem you as a problem gambler, Chris. So you, I don't know, be a bit... No, but you might be a monkey up, yeah? So let's say you're a monkey up on this account and they don't want you because you're a fucking barman, right? So it's like, right, we're red flagging you. And once they red flag you, you are banned with Flutter, Entain, William Hill, 888, Mr. Green, whether that's any use.
Yeah,
Right. So,
yeah, okay.
and listen, this is the appeals process. So if you think you've been wronged, right? So, Chris, you've been badly wronged, and you are appealing, right?
Yes.
The arbiters on the appeal are the bookmakers themselves. I kid you not. So as it stands, once you're red flagged, you cannot bet with any big corporation for 5 years. 5 years.
Oh.
That's the rules.
Wow.
So that's breaking on bastards if people haven't seen it. But that is literally what's going to happen from now. So this is how serious it is. And all new accounts, don't forget, for under 25s are £500 max deposit per month. So what's that going to do
gone.
to the level?
Listen, if there's any organised criminals listening to us tonight, there's an opportunity for organised crime to step up and provide a better service where people can bet. Because that's what always happens when you try and prohibit something for which there is still a high level of demand, e.g. drugs, right? You can never ban something where there's demand. And if there's demand for betting, people are just going to go elsewhere. So there's an opportunity here for organised crime, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it's getting to the stage now where people are messaging me, and I can see people actually doing this. So say if you've got skin in the game and you've always had a bet, you basically get a list of contacts, a bit like a tipping service, and you get like 20 or 30 people putting you a tenner on each bet and saying, I'll settle up. We settle up at the end of the week. I'll transfer it via PayPal or whatever. And they're just getting the tenors on, because that they can get on. Why are we doing this? It's nonsense. It is. It's madness. And it's just, like I say, big corp are behaving like the mafia. And sadly, racing's leaders and now the horse betting forum, Sean Trivas, is also facilitating them. And I'm sorry, but he needs to go after that interview with Chris Cook, because if that was the sort of leader of the horse betters forum...
Let's be fair, we said they were worthless 18 months ago.
Worthless 18 months ago, and now doubled, John. They've gone up 200% in terms of being total cunts. Right.
Yeah. Quislings and collaborators, they are. Vichy France, that's what it sounds like to me.
It is. Somebody's asked me for an Ammo Racing update. I have no further updates on that at the moment regarding their payments with tax, etc. No, but I do know that Marwan Kukash has no entries at Chester this week. What's going on with Marwan, John, I wonder? Has he signed his police car?
I haven't. Funnily enough, I haven't noticed him have many runners of late.
No. What's gone off with him? He's gone very quiet.
None since November, I think I read, actually.
Yeah.
And does he still have horses in training, or has he slipped out the game?
Well, this is it. Where's the media again to point prod the bear, if you like?
Well, they're very quick to have him on when he has a winner at his beloved Chester, aren't they? So.
Indeed. Well, sort of like leading on to that then about possibly people going skint in the game. Basically, strong rumours, and I've got to say rumours at this stage because, what happens if they're wrong, that Quipco are not to be renewing any racing sponsorship contracts when they expire. I think that's very significant because they're big backers of a lot of big racing meetings. Their Newmarket Guineas sponsorship, for example, fell to just the Guineas themselves this year when they sponsored the entire cards in previous years. This is now left to Howden Insurers. That mad bat. What do you call him, John? Did you see him on telly? The Howden man.
No,
yeah, he's mad as a box of frogs. They're sponsoring more now. But I think this is a problem for racing. I mean, bearing in mind, Darley have dropped their 30-year sponsorship of the Yorkshire Oaks.
Dear.
Is this a sign of the times? Is this a sign of, I don't know, people cutting back? But racing's in trouble, isn't it, sponsorship-wise?
Seriously, yeah. I mean, we've got the bald bastard derby this year, haven't we?
Well, it's public perception. If racing consistently acquiesces and agrees that, racing is pretty cruel, we're doing our best, and gambling's bad, sponsors are going to think, well, why do we want to actually spend money sponsoring a product that the general public just don't have any love for? So, why on earth would we want to get involved with a sport that doesn't even believe in itself? So all of this is just an inevitable consequence of racing's lack of confidence in its own product.
It is. I mean, we banged on about this, and all we're requiring is for basically the factions of the sport, the ROA, the BHA, to do everyone, the HBF, everyone to do their jobs right and support the sport, but they just can't seem to do that, and it's just bizarre. This is why we're saying it seems to be across the board, not just with affordability, but with watering, with everything. Everything's just like anti-punter. It's like we're the devil's sperm, in terms of,
We need Penny Morden in the chair to get my vote.
She's
Honestly.
full of
Andrew
devil's
Woodman,
sperm.
if you're listening, he moves in those circles. Tell Penny to give me a buzz. I've got some ideas, I promise you.
Oh yeah. Oh, speaking of Councillor Woodman, I'm glad you mentioned that. So the Tories got absolutely blitzed in northwest Leicestershire, where he's a councillor. But Councillor, I told you, right, we only mix with good types. There's no shit houses on this show. He doubled his majority. Yeah. He doubled his majority. So he kept his seat and doubled the majority. That's Councillor Woodman for you. But I've already said to him.
Was there any betting? Could we got on?
Well, I asked him. He was very coy, I kept asking him. I said, "Can we land any bets?" He wouldn't commit. But
he's had only 11 to 4 himself, hasn't he?
He has. He's a crafty bastard as well. I'll tell you why he's a crafty bastard. So he claims the kids about 9 months ago wanted a dog, right? So I'm trying to work this out. I thought, where's this come from? They've never seemed to want a dog. He wanted that dog because it's the dog that's wanted him. His dog humps things and all sorts. It's the fun. It's a funny dog. It's one of them funny dogs. So imagine him walking it round while he's sort of canvassing,
campaigning.
Yes, yeah, the dog Reggie, the dog has won him that election. People love a dog. He knew that. He knew the British people love dogs. Right,
the dogs are back in the Dogs Trust now. I've just seen it online. He's
he's selling it. Yeah, get out of here.
Use that.
Well, he ate his iPod earphones. So he's
good. The Labour dog. Good, excellent.
Yeah. So the disgraceful Councillor Woodman has got another 4-year term, but he's seething though, John, because. Had the Conservatives held the seat, he'd be on 20 grand a year, but now he's dropped to 5 grand a year because he's the opposition, John.
Dear me.
Terrible.
So he's moaning now as well. But anyway, he's all good. He's Councillor Woodman, doubling his majority. Well done to Andrew Woodman. Okay, looking through a few questions. Aidan McGay's also been on, and this is a thing of just treading back to affordability. Thoughts on the security of sending bank statements for single customer view, etc. The implications could be like identity fraud, privacy shared with anyone. We've also talked about this on many past shows regarding security. They go to like independent firms, I'm told, but still, that email is in someone's inbox at the bookmakers before it goes to the privacy centre.
Yeah. It's litigation waiting to happen because we know that third parties, or even first parties, do not handle data properly, right? So large organisations like Google, organisations like Microsoft, organisations like the National Health Service have all, if not historically, but all currently subject to all kinds of litigation about how big organisations handle your data. So I think it's inevitable that somewhere along the line that data is going to be released inadvertently to commercial organisations. So if you believe that, all these people that say, I've got nothing to hide, why would I bother sending it? Why would I worry? Well, that's plainly mad, because that requires you to trust that the organisations are going to be looking after your data properly, and they just don't. The evidence suggests that big organisations just don't do it, whether it's by design or whether by incompetence. I wouldn't be interested in sending that information across to anybody. I mean, you're right, they can't even settle bets properly, so what chance have you got?
Punters union time, I think. I think we need one. We need a really good, solid one.
Mick Lynch.
Yeah.
Well, you do.
That's it.
Whether your politics, that kind of uncompromising, media savvy, aggressive kind of attitude is what you need.
It is. There's no more pandering. There's no more debating. There's no more you just come from your side and you just tell it how it is, and that's it. And you're unwavering. and you absolutely head down and you are fighting for your cause, just like the gambling harm groups do, just like the Gambling Commission do, who are supposed to be regulators, not steerers. You fight for your cause and your corner, just like you would in any job or any walk of life, like for your pay, your rights, whatever. It's time for punters really to get together and be on one side. And that doesn't mean just because you're getting on, you've got to realise that because somebody else isn't getting on, that's going to be a problem for you also, and not to be me. Yeah, so just to finish, I'm sure punters will want to know your assessment, the Guineas winners and stuff, John. Even though, well, we kind of know what it is with regard to the racing lines and stuff. But the 2,000 Guineas first, John, what are we saying about the winner? Are we saying it's not an all-time great, is it? It's a good horse, but
he's run his race.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably run at the level he ran in the Guineas, maybe a little bit better, but, you know, it doesn't really make him an all-time great, does it?
Now, there's a lot of horses in there, like you said. You were right. I would probably count 2/3 of the field probably haven't run the race. It's produced that kind of race. I mean, the Coolmore horse was out with the washing. Little Big Bear lame early after getting struck into, apparently. Auguste Rodin showed absolutely zip. You go on and on.
I'm surprised there wasn't more made of that, to be honest. And I mean, you talk about the game trying to move forward and that, and Ryan Mowen's comments after the race, speak to the trainer. I mean, what a petulant little shithouse, in all fairness.
It's funny that the producer mentioned that to me. I didn't see that. The producer mentioned that that's what he'd said. And my initial response was, it's just not good for the game, that, because you see them in America and the jockeys will give like detailed descriptions or like, you know, why they didn't handle it. To be fair, some jockeys in this country do, but just to like absolutely say nothing, I just, yeah, it's not good for the sport in a race of that magnitude. I agree. Ryan Moore is his own person. I know he doesn't like the media. He's like Stout, doesn't like the interviews. He's uncomfortable with a lot of people in the game, and I get that. That's his right and opinion. But he should have, like you say, he should have voiced, you know, where he didn't feel right, or, you know, didn't like the court, whatever. You just whatever you want to say. The ground, maybe, whatever. But so there we go. So, but yeah, the 2,000 sort of underwhelmed me as well. I thought that, like you said, the winner ran its race, nice horse, no problem with that. The 1,000, I was left on the floor as usual, as I usually do. I mean, I was the one that got Kingman beat in his Guineas, and I managed to get Tahira beat in a 1,000 Guineas, pulling a Taterfield clear of the rest of the field, John. And I know what you're saying about the ground, and like you say, a lot of fillies would have ran the race on that, and I agree. But still, I was on the floor because, and I'm going to sound sour here, but that was Dubai carrots on that winner. I have absolutely no doubt. I've just no doubt whatsoever that the late money on the machine told it. It was basically, when Saeed bin Saror came on in the sunglasses after the race, it wasn't sunny either. You want to look into a man's eyes when he's speaking. And you know, that's why these poker rats wear the glasses. We know that. Yeah. So, and he said this horse had only been in the country 2 weeks. It had obviously been left out in Dubai.
Yeah.
So the question is why? I mean, obviously, we know the winter him, sun on the backs, get it, it's a filly. Yeah, it also makes sense like that. But for me, that ran as if it had carrots.
And Donald Remen made an interesting point, don't laugh.
Go on.
No, go on.
She pointed out before the race that the horse had thickened up tremendously over the winter. And she was very strong on it pre-race.
Well, that's interesting.
In all fairness.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said thickened up there. Because it's like...
Yeah, you're thinking roids, aren't you, straight away?
Yeah, roids. It's what Ward does, right? When you see Ward's 2-year-olds come over at Ascot, you know, they some of them, you even... I mean, look at that fucking thing, Acapulco, when it come over. It looked like about an hand and a half big.
It actually looked like Acapulco.
Yeah, it looked like awful.
It's like fucking, it was like Hulk Hogan.
It was bigger than Acapulco itself.
Yeah. the island or whatever. Yeah. No, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? But they pulled so far clear. But typically on the second, typical, isn't it?
I don't think Morge beats Tahira ever again, personally.
I'd be surprised. I was a little bit underwhelmed with Tahira's appearance, if I'm honest.
Did you think she'd not grown much?
Not so much that. I mean, because you can crab horses. It hasn't grown much, but if they've more or less got the shape at toe, they're not going to grow much. I mean, I was sort of expecting that. I just thought she looked a little bit late across her lines, and there's a little bit of decent weather to bring her on.
Do you reckon she's again like typical Weld then? Gonna maybe flourish over at summer, John?
I would have thought so. I mean, I do think she'll improve physically for some good weather, and I think you'll see better filly at Ascot in June, and probably later in the season as well.
John, I think she'd beat the 2000 winner.
I wouldn't want to there. I think she has that touch of class. I mean, when you look at the way the Guineas was run, Marge led that side. The third horse led the other side. They were expecting to win, by the way. The comments from the syndicate owner or whatever he was. He said, we came here expecting to win. We're not surprised if she was third. And very little actually got into the race. And you think Tahira missed the kick, cruised into it. I mean, I think she went very short odds in running.
Yeah.
That was probably a better performance than we realised because she didn't win. Everybody's like, But I think personally, that was probably the performance of the meeting, how she actually got into the race from off the pace, because others couldn't.
Yes. She's certainly got like gears and everything.
She's got class.
A lot of class. I think she's going to be, if she doesn't win literally everything for the remainder of the season, I'll be amazed. And Morge in opposition wouldn't worry me in the slightest, unless he puts more in. But as more super unleaded for Morge. Poor Morge.
She's only about 15-1. She'd probably pop.
I'm going to say, I reckon that they went at well. I don't think it works all the time, does it? You can't keep going at well with him and shoving it in all the time. But anyway, so that's our view on the Guineas. Hope you enjoyed our view on that. Any more business to add, chaps? I've got one more question from Keith Watson, the Kent Chopper. He said, do you think it's okay for stables to be sponsored by bookies or jockeys, for example? They must get inside information. Is that not an awful look? I think it's pretty obvious. Yeah, it's obvious. He's like, why should an employee within? It's a bit like Camelot used to National Lottery, didn't they? But it's like Camelot people being able to play at National Lottery. You it's like if they win, it's like big uproar, and it's like, oi, what's happening here? Like Blogger when he does his £500 free bet. Did you see that the other week? Blogger actually said the winner was this really very good-looking female podcaster that's got about 14,000 followers, despite all the entrants and the retweeters that had got this horse right. Who, if this wins this race, I will give so much to my followers. So he gave the £500. She'd won it. It's a coincidence that because basically they're big pals.
What are the chances of that, eh?
I know. The warm balls, It's like
it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, and inevitably people will compare that with CJ winning next week's competition that we're on.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not the same thing at all.
No, it's quite different. We're men of principle.
Yeah.
If you don't like them, you've got others.
I mean, you go back to the Voties sponsoring jockeys and things. It'll take us back to Super Tuesday when Lee was on the telly because he stood to win the GDP of Iceland.
Yeah.
And
257,000.
Yeah. Now we had the cheese man riding the last one. Now imagine if he'd been sponsored and he's missed the kick.
Which he did.
Yeah.
Coincidentally,
Yeah, if he'd had sponsorship and coincidentally they'd been the biggest losers, if Lee had snagged his plethora of multiple bets, what sort of impression would that have created?
Well, this is it. This exactly. Imagine a jockey sponsored and he's right and there's Unibet have got, I don't know, they sponsor jockeys and train like 400 grand running on to his mountain last. Well, you haven't got
if I've got a 10 a lucky 63 going on at the Guineas, and it's with Denise and she's sponsoring my jockey in the last leg.
Cash out.
I'm out, as Duncan Bannatyne would say.
You know the bad thing in them days, though, right? I mean, people said I could have rang Betfair, but we were a 4-to-1 chance and stuff like that. But like, there were no cash out.
No.
Back then, so I couldn't take anything. They didn't do cash out then. Anyway,
that's the only thing you put out of it.
That's all I've had out of life.
That's it, I mean, you were sat there lumbered with that bet, and all your mates and supporters were sat around on Teams chat saying, "The fucking hell's he back this far with this idiot?" Fucking clot.
I know. Bad. I should have stuck and not twisted. Right. Hope you've enjoyed the show, chaps. Sorry it's late this week. Bank holiday logistics. We're back as normal on Friday and then Sunday. Then we've got a Dante preview show coming next Tuesday evening for Patreon subscribers. Get paying your £7. We need it. And then on the Wednesday morning, it'll be free to air for you paupers that refuse. Right. That's all from me, John and Chris. And have a great week. Bye for now.